Take your hand off her. I didn't raise my voice when I said it. I didn't need to. The man across the table had just grabbed the woman's wrist like he owned it, like she was something he could hold in place whenever she tried to leave. And the strange thing was, I hadn't even known her name 2 hours earlier, but the look in her eyes told me everything. Fear, anger, and something worse. The quiet resignation of someone who had been trapped in this situation before. The man smiled at me like I was an amusing interruption. "Or what?" he asked. For a moment the entire corner of the restaurant went silent. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Conversations faded into whispers. Even the waiter stopped moving. I could hear my own heartbeat, but I didn't move. I just stood there between him and the woman whose wrist he was still holding. "Or you leave," I said calmly. The woman finally spoke. "Victor," she said quietly, "let go." He didn't. Instead he leaned closer to her like this was all some private joke. "You're being dramatic again," he said smoothly. "We're just having a conversation." Her jaw tightened. "We're not," she replied. Victor finally released her wrist, but only slowly, like the moment itself belonged to him. Then he looked at me, really looked at me this time, like I was something he had stepped in on the sidewalk. "And who exactly are you supposed to be?" he asked. The woman beside me inhaled slowly. "I asked you to leave," she said again. Victor laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You always do this, Sophia," he said. That was the moment I learned her name, Sophia, and the way he said it made it sound like a threat. "You create a scene," Victor continued, gesturing toward me. "You find some random man to play hero so you can pretend you're not the problem." Sophia didn't answer, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, like every word he said was landing somewhere deep. Victor leaned back in his chair, suddenly relaxed again. "You know what the board said today?" He continued casually. Her eyes flickered. That was the first time she looked nervous. "The board doesn't matter right now," she said quietly. "Oh, I think it does," Victor replied. Then his gaze slid back to me. "Does your new friend here know who you really are?" he asked her. Sophia's face hardened. "Leave." But Victor wasn't done. "Because I'd hate for him to think this little dinner means something," he said. "When the truth is, you just needed a distraction after humiliating yourself in front of a billion-dollar board meeting." That was the moment the entire situation snapped into focus. Board meeting, $1 billion. This wasn't just some jealous ex-boyfriend causing trouble in a restaurant. This was something much bigger. Sophia pushed her chair back. "We're leaving," she said. Victor's hand shot out again. Not violently, just enough to stop her. And that was the moment I stepped forward. I didn't think about it, didn't weigh the consequences. Didn't consider that this man looked like the kind of person who could ruin careers with a single phone call. All I thought about was my daughter, Emma, 5 years old. And the promise I made to myself the day she was born, that if she ever ended up in a room like this, with a man like that, someone would stand up. So I stood up. Victor noticed the shift immediately. "Careful," he said, his voice lower now. "You're getting involved in something you don't understand." "Maybe," I replied, "but I understand when someone says no." The restaurant was completely quiet now. Victor studied me for a long moment. Then he smiled, but this time it looked dangerous. "You know what I find fascinating?" he said slowly. "Men like you. Men like me, construction boots, wrinkled shirt, probably still had pancake batter somewhere on my kitchen counter from breakfast with Emma that morning." I knew exactly what he meant. "You think this is some fairy tale moment," Victor continued. "Hero saves the poor woman from the villain." He gestured toward Sophia, "But she's not some helpless girl." I knew that already. Sophia didn't look helpless, she looked furious. Victor leaned closer. "Tell him who you are," he said to her. Sophia didn't answer. "Go on," Victor pressed. "Tell him what company you run." The words landed like a stone in my stomach. "Company, run." Victor turned back to me. "You really have no idea, do you?" I didn't respond, because the truth was, I didn't. Victor laughed again. "Congratulations," he said. "You just inserted yourself into the life of one of the most powerful CEOs in this city." He gestured toward Sophia like she was some prize he used to own. This woman controls a real estate empire worth several $billions. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Billion, Sophia finally spoke. Victor, stop. But he wasn't interested in stopping. And you, he said, pointing at me, are what exactly? His eyes moved over me again. Project manager, construction worker, something like that. Construction coordinator, I said evenly. Victor smirked. Even better. He leaned back in his chair. Do you know how many people would love to be sitting where you are right now? I shrugged. I just wanted dinner. For the first time, Victor's expression faltered. Sophia looked at me then, really looked, like she was trying to figure out if I meant that. I did. Victor scoffed. You think this is a cute story, he said. Regular guy saves billionaire woman from big bad ex. He stood up slowly, but trust me. His voice dropped. You just stepped into a war you don't understand. Sophia stood beside me now. Her voice was calm. Leave. Victor adjusted his jacket. Then he smiled again. Cold, controlled. I will, he said. But Monday's board meeting is going to be very interesting. He leaned closer to Sophia. You always had terrible judgment when it came to men. Then he looked at me one last time. Enjoy your evening. And just like that, Victor Hale walked out of the restaurant. The tension didn't leave with him. If anything, it got heavier. Sophia slowly sat down again. Her hands were shaking slightly. I noticed because she tried to hide them under the table. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly. Yes, I replied, I did. She looked up at me, and for the first time that night, I saw something break through the armor she'd been wearing since she walked into the restaurant. Relief. You don't understand what you just got involved in, she said. You're probably right. I sat down across from her again, but I know one thing. What's that? She asked. No one gets to grab someone like that and pretend it's normal. Sophia stared at me for a long moment, then she laughed, not because anything was funny, but because something inside her had just cracked open. You're different, she said. I get that a lot. She shook her head slowly. You really don't know who I am, do you? No, I said, and honestly. I lifted my glass. I liked it better that way. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then Sophia leaned forward slightly and asked the question that would change everything. Evan, how would you feel if I told you that man you just stood up to is the only person in this city who might be powerful enough to destroy both our lives? For a moment I didn't answer her, not because I didn't understand the question, because I understood it too well. Sophia was watching me carefully, like she expected the moment to land, like she had seen this reaction before. The moment when someone realizes her world is too big, too dangerous, too complicated, and then they walk away. I took a sip of water instead. Then I asked the only thing that actually mattered. Do you want me to leave? Sophia blinked. That clearly wasn't the answer she expected. You should, she said quietly, but that wasn't my question. I know. She looked down at the table for a second. The restaurant noise had slowly returned. People were pretending they hadn't just watched a public confrontation, but every once in a while I caught someone glancing at our table. Curiosity spreads fast in a quiet room. Sophia exhaled slowly. Victor Hale doesn't like losing control, she said. That much was obvious. You don't understand, she continued. Her voice dropped lower. He built half of the investment partnerships that fund my company. Now that sounded complicated. And now, I asked, now he wants the other half. The words hung in the air. Sophia leaned back in her chair. For the first time since we met, she looked tired, not physically, emotionally. You asked earlier why I invited you to dinner, she said. That wasn't random. I raised an eyebrow. I had a feeling. She gave a small, embarrassed smile. I saw you at the cafe 3 times this week. That caught me off guard. You noticed. You sit at the same table every morning, she said, near the window. That was true. After dropping Emma off at school, I stopped there before work most days. Black coffee. 10 quiet minutes before the construction site chaos started. You read the same notebook every time, she continued. It's Emma's spelling workbook, I said. Sophia nodded slowly. I guessed. Something softened in her expression when she said that. Then today, she continued, Victor showed up at my office. I didn't like the direction this story was going. He wanted to renegotiate his board position, she said, and when I refused, he reminded me how fragile power really is. That sentence carried weight. He controls 3 major investors, Sophia said, if he convinces them to vote against me Monday. She didn't finish the sentence, but I could fill in the rest. You lose the company, I said, or they replace me. That sounded worse. For a second neither of us spoke. Then I leaned forward. So where do I fit into this? Sophia looked almost ashamed. That's the part you're going to hate. I doubt that. I needed someone normal tonight. I blinked. Normal. Yes. Someone outside her world. Someone not trying to manipulate her. Someone who didn't see billions when they looked at her. You didn't even know my name when you sat down, I said. I know, she replied softly. That's why I chose you. I leaned back in my chair. Well, that's not terrifying at all. Sophia laughed quietly. I told you I should have left you alone. You should have. She waited, but you didn't, I added. No. For a moment our eyes met. There was something fragile in that silence, something honest. Then Sophia looked down again. I didn't expect Victor to show up, she said. Is he always like that? Yes. The answer came too quickly. He hates losing, she added, and tonight he thinks he lost. I considered that, so now he's going to make it personal. Yes. That word carried a lot of history. I rubbed the back of my neck. Well, that's inconvenient. Sophia smiled slightly. That's one way to put it. Then something occurred to me. Wait. She looked up. You said you've seen me at the cafe all week. Yes. And today you just walked over and asked to sit with me. Yes. So your master plan was. I gestured around the restaurant. This. Sophia actually looked embarrassed now. My master plan was to have dinner with someone who didn't want anything from me. I studied her face. There was no manipulation there, no calculation, just a woman who looked exhausted from being surrounded by powerful people who all had agendas. So why not cancel the dinner after Victor showed up? I asked. Sophia hesitated. Then she said something very quietly, because you stood up. That landed harder than I expected. She looked down at the table again. You didn't know who I was, she said. You didn't know what Victor could do. But you still stepped in. I shrugged. That's what decent people do. Sophia shook her head slowly. You'd be surprised. For a moment we both sat there in silence. Then she suddenly asked, do you ever get tired of fighting for everything? The question felt personal. Every day, I admitted. She nodded like she understood. My world is different, she said, but it's the same problem. Which is? Everyone around me wants something. That sounded lonely. Except you, she added. You just wanted dinner. That's still true. She smiled faintly. Then her phone buzzed on the table. Sophia glanced at the screen, and the small smile disappeared. What is it? I asked. She turned the phone toward me. It was a news alert. Breaking. Hale Capital Chairman expected to challenge Lumina Group CEO at Monday board vote. I looked back at her. That was fast. Sophia sighed. Victor moves quickly. The article preview showed a photo, her photo, then Victor's, side by side, business war, public messy. You didn't deserve to get dragged into this, she said. I leaned back in my chair. Too late now. Sophia studied me again. You're taking this surprisingly well. I work construction, I said. Things fall apart every day. That made her laugh, but the tension came back quickly. You should go home, she said softly. Forget tonight happened. And you. I'll deal with Victor. She said it like someone preparing for battle, but I could still see the stress in her hands, the tiny tremor she was trying to hide. You don't have to do this alone, I said. Sophia looked up sharply. Yes, she said, I do. Why? Because everyone who gets close to me becomes a target. Her eyes flickered toward the door Victor had used. And I won't do that to you. For a moment I thought about Emma, her small hand in mine every morning, the promise I made to always protect the quiet life we'd built. Sophia was right. Her world was dangerous, complicated, messy. Exactly the kind of situation a single father should avoid. I stood up. Sophia watched me. There it was, the moment she expected. The moment everyone eventually chose, distance, safety, walking away. But instead I reached for my jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Emma's drawing, crayons, 3 stick figures holding hands. I looked at it for a second, then set it on the table. Sophia stared at it. What's that? She asked softly. My daughter drew it yesterday, I said. She studied the picture. 3 people, she murmured. Yeah. Sophia looked up. Where's the third person? I shrugged. Emma says families grow. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then Sophia whispered something so quietly I almost missed it. I don't remember the last time someone showed me something that honest. I slid the drawing back into my pocket, then I looked at her. So here's my question. What? Sophia straightened slightly. What question? If Monday's board meeting decides your entire future. I paused. Why are you sitting here tonight instead of preparing for war? Sophia's expression shifted. Something determined replaced the exhaustion. Then she said the one thing I definitely wasn't expecting. Because I already chose my strategy. I frowned. What strategy? Sophia met my eyes, calm, certain, and a little dangerous. You. And suddenly I realized something that made my stomach drop. Victor Hale hadn't just declared war on Sophia tonight. He had declared it on me too. But what I still didn't understand was this. Why would one of the most powerful women in the city choose a single dad from a construction site as her secret weapon? You. What? I'm pretty sure my voice came out somewhere between confused and concerned. Sophia didn't look confused at all. She looked calm, too calm, like someone who had already thought through 10 different outcomes and decided this one was the least dangerous. That's not funny, I said. I'm not joking. I leaned back in my chair and stared at her. You're telling me your strategy against a billionaire investment shark is a guy who spends his mornings helping a 6-year-old practice spelling words. 5, I corrected automatically. Sophia tilted her head. 5. Emma's 5. She smiled slightly. That actually makes my point stronger. Your point is still insane. Sophia folded her hands on the table. Victor controls investors, she said. He controls media narratives. He controls pressure. None of that sounded good, but there's one thing he can't control. And that is public trust. I frowned. You already run a billion-dollar company. I'm guessing people trust you. Sophia shook her head. People trust success. That's not the same thing. That sounded like experience talking. If Victor convinces the board I've become reckless, she continued, they'll vote to replace me. And having dinner with a random construction coordinator helps that how? Because you're not random. I raised an eyebrow. You just said you picked me because I was normal. Yes. That sounds pretty random. Sophia leaned forward slightly. You're a single father. I blinked. That's your strategy. Part of it. I rubbed my forehead. Please tell me the other parts are more complicated. They are. That was comforting. A lot of people in my industry believe I'm cold, Sophia said. Unapproachable, too focused on growth. And they're not entirely wrong. Her honesty surprised me. But if Victor tries to paint me as unstable, she continued, I need the opposite image. Which is a grounded life. I stared at her. Then I laughed. Not because anything was funny, because the idea was ridiculous. You think bringing a construction guy and his kid into your billionaire world makes you look grounded. Yes, that's the worst plan I've ever heard. Sophia didn't argue, she just waited. Then she asked quietly, "Do you know why Victor was really angry tonight?" "Because you dumped him." She shook her head. "Because I stopped needing him." That sentence hit differently. "For years he helped secure financing," she continued. "He believed that meant he owned a piece of me." "Some guys think everything is ownership," I said. Sophia nodded. "When I refused to give him control of Lumina's expansion projects, he realized something." "What?" "That he couldn't control me anymore." That explained the anger. "And now he wants revenge," I said. "Yes." The word came out flat. "So where do I fit into that revenge plan?" Sophia hesitated. Then she told the truth. "Victor will assume I'm using you." That made sense, because that's what people in my world do, she added. "And you're not." Sophia met my eyes. "I invited you to dinner because I needed to remember what normal felt like." That answer felt too honest to be manipulation. "And now," I asked, "now I need to win." "Fair enough, but I still don't see how I help with that." Sophia reached into her purse. She pulled out her phone. Then she turned the screen toward me. It was a photo, a candid picture from earlier in the restaurant, Victor confronting us, my body between him and Sophia, the moment frozen perfectly. "Where did you get that?" I asked. "Someone at another table posted it." That didn't surprise me. Everything ends up online. The caption read, "Guy stands up to billionaire investor harassing woman at dinner." The post already had thousands of comments. I felt my stomach tighten. "Internet moves fast," I muttered. "Yes," Sophia agreed. "And that photo already changed the narrative." I studied the image again. I looked like I was about to punch Victor, which I probably was. "So your plan," I said slowly, "is to let the internet believe you're dating some random guy who defended you." Sophia nodded once. "That's part of it." "And the other part?" "You're actually someone worth respecting." That caught me off guard. "Respecting?" "You stood up when you didn't have to," she said. "Most people don't." "That's a pretty low bar." "Maybe," she replied softly, "but it's rare." For a moment neither of us spoke. Then I remembered something. Emma. Sophia's expression softened immediately. "Your daughter?" "Yes. She seems wonderful." "You've never met her." "I've seen the way you talk about her." That was surprisingly accurate. I leaned forward. "Let me be clear about something." Sophia straightened slightly. "Emma doesn't get dragged into billionaire drama." "I would never ask that." "Good." Sophia nodded. "Your daughter comes first, always." "Exactly." Then something occurred to me. "You said Victor controls media narratives." "Yes." "And that photo online is helping you." "Right now." "But he'll try to flip the story." "Absolutely." I exhaled slowly. "So Monday's board meeting will be ugly," Sophia finished. That much was obvious. She reached for her glass of water. Her hand was steadier now. "You still haven't answered my question," she said. "What question?" "Are you scared of Victor?" I considered that. "I'm a construction coordinator," I said. "I deal with angry contractors and collapsed timelines every week." "That's not the same thing." "No," I admitted, "it's not." Sophia watched me carefully. Victor Hale wasn't just some angry ex. He was powerful, connected, the kind of man who could make life very difficult. And I had Emma to think about. A quiet little house, morning pancakes, school drop-offs, all the small peaceful routines that kept our life stable. This billionaire mess threatened all of that. Sophia must have seen the calculation on my face. "You can walk away," she said gently. "No one would blame you." That sounds like experience talking. She smiled faintly. It is. People had walked away before. That much was clear. I thought about Emma again. Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out her drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands. Sophia looked at it again. This picture, she said quietly. Emma believes families grow. That's what she says. Sophia traced the air above the drawing like she didn't want to touch it. My family doesn't grow, she said. It shrinks. Something about that sentence made my chest tighten. Powerful people don't get close to others, she added. Too many risks. That sounds lonely. It is. For a moment the billionaire CEO disappeared, and the woman sitting across from me just looked tired, human. I folded the drawing carefully and put it away. Then I stood up. Sophia watched me, waiting, again, for the moment people usually left. But I picked up my jacket instead. You're not walking away, she asked. I shrugged. I'm still deciding. That made her smile. Then I asked something that changed the entire direction of the night. Where are you going after this? Sophia blinked. Home. Alone? Yes. I looked toward the restaurant entrance. Victor had left a while ago, but men like him didn't usually stop after one confrontation. I'll walk you to your car, I said. You don't have to. I know. Sophia stood slowly, and for the first time that evening she looked relieved. We walked toward the door together. The cool night air hit us immediately, city lights glowing across the street. Sophia's car was parked at the curb, a black sedan, driver waiting. She turned to me. Thank you, she said. For dinner. For standing up. I shrugged again. That's just who I am. Sophia studied my face for a moment. Then she asked quietly, Do you regret sitting with me tonight? I thought about it. The chaos, Victor, the internet already exploding with speculation, and the very real possibility that my quiet life was about to get complicated. Then I answered honestly, Not yet. Sophia smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her, but before either of us could say anything else. Her driver suddenly stepped out of the car, his voice urgent. Miss Sophia. We both turned. What is it? She asked. The driver held up his phone. Sophia took it. Her expression changed immediately. Fear, shock, something worse. What happened? I asked. She slowly handed me the screen. The headline made my stomach drop. Breaking. Lumina Group CEO under investigation. Hale Capital calls for emergency board vote. Sophia looked at me, and the calm woman from the restaurant was gone. Victor just made his move, she whispered, but the real question suddenly became this. If Victor was willing to destroy Sophia publicly, what would he do to the one man who had stood beside her? For a moment I couldn't breathe. The phone screen felt heavy in my hand. Lumina Group CEO under investigation. That wasn't just a headline, that was a weapon. I looked up at Sophia. Her face had gone pale. Victor didn't just want to embarrass her, he wanted to destroy her. When did this get posted? I asked. 30 seconds ago, her driver said quietly. Sophia closed her eyes for a second. Just 1 second, but in that moment I could see the weight she carried. Billion-dollar company, hundreds of employees, a board waiting for weakness, and one man who had decided she didn't deserve to win. When she opened her eyes again, the CEO was back, calm, controlled. What exactly are they accusing me of? She asked. Her driver scrolled. Misuse of corporate funds, insider decision-making, board ethics violations. Sophia gave a quiet, humorless laugh. Victor always preferred dramatic stories. I looked at her. Is any of it true? No. She didn't hesitate. He can't prove it either, she added. Then why make the accusation? Sophia turned toward the city lights. Because he doesn't need proof. That sentence sat heavy in the night air. All he needs, she continued, is doubt. I understood that. Construction projects fail for the same reason sometimes. Not because something is broken, because people believe it is. Sophia handed the phone back to her driver. Get the car ready, she said. Yes, ma'am. The driver moved quickly, but Sophia didn't get in. She stood there looking at the street like she was calculating something. Then she turned to me. "You should go home." "That sounds familiar." "This is serious now," she said quietly. "Victor just turned a personal fight into a public war." "Seems like he already did that." Sophia shook her head. "No, before this was intimidation." She looked at the headline again. "This is assassination. Reputation assassination." I rubbed the back of my neck. Monday's board meeting just became a lot more interesting. Sophia let out a slow breath. "Yes." For a second neither of us spoke. Then she said something I didn't expect. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For dragging you into this." "You didn't drag me anywhere. You stood up for me." "I would do that again." Sophia studied my face. "You still might." I raised an eyebrow. "That sounds ominous." She didn't smile. "Victor will try to destroy everything connected to me." "And you think I'm on that list?" "I know you are." That should have scared me. Maybe it did, but fear works differently when you're a father, because once you spend years protecting a small human being from the world, standing up to powerful men stops feeling like bravery. It just feels like responsibility. "I'll deal with it," I said. Sophia's expression softened. "You say that like it's simple." "It's not." Then I reached into my pocket again. Emma's drawing, I held it up. "See this?" Sophia nodded. "Emma believes families grow." "I remember." "Well," I said, folding the paper carefully, "families also protect each other." Sophia looked at me like she didn't quite understand. "You and I aren't family," she said. "Not yet." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Sophia blinked. For the first time all night, the billionaire CEO looked completely caught off guard. "You're very confident," she said. "Not confident." I shrugged, just honest. The driver opened the car door. "Miss Sophia." She hesitated, then looked back at me. "You really should go home," she said again. "Emma will be waiting." That was true. Emma always waited by the window when I worked late, 5 years old, still believing the world worked the way it was supposed to. I nodded. "Good luck Monday." Sophia didn't move toward the car yet. "Evan." "Yeah. If this gets worse." "It will." She almost smiled. "I might need your help again." I thought about that, then I answered carefully, "You already have it." For a moment we just stood there, city traffic humming around us, two people from completely different worlds, somehow standing in the same storm. Then Sophia finally got into the car. The door closed. The sedan pulled away slowly. And just like that, my quiet life should have returned, except it did. Because the moment I walked through my front door that night, Emma was sitting on the couch, wide awake. She ran straight into my arms. "Daddy." "Hey, kiddo. You're late." "I know." Emma looked up at me with serious eyes. "The TV said something about a lady you had dinner with." My stomach tightened. "Did it?" She nodded. "Are you in trouble?" Kids ask the hardest questions. I carried her to the couch. "Sometimes grown-ups have arguments," I said. Emma considered that. Then she said something that stopped me cold. The lady looked sad. Sophia, Emma had noticed. Kids always do. "She's having a hard week," I admitted. Emma thought about that too. Then she ran to her room. I heard drawers opening, crayons moving, paper rustling. A minute later she came back, holding a new drawing, 3 stick figures again, but this time there were 4. Emma handed it to me proudly. "Families grow," she reminded me. I stared at the picture, then I laughed quietly. "You really believe that, huh?" Emma nodded. "Of course." I looked down at the drawing again, then I realized something. Monday wasn't just about Sophia's company anymore. Victor thought he was fighting a billionaire CEO. He didn't realize something important. He had picked a fight with a father. And fathers don't walk away from people they decide to protect. Monday morning, the boardroom would decide Sophia's future. Victor believed he had already won, but he had made one mistake. He thought power only came from money. He forgot something much stronger exists: loyalty. And sometimes, the strongest alliances start with a single sentence whispered across a dinner table. "Can I sit with you?" Because that night, she didn't just sit down, she changed everything, and I stayed. Some promises don't come with contracts, but they still last forever.